and welcome to another guest speaker today as part of Get Published cohort. Today we have with us Rana Sweis, who's a journalist and entrepreneur. And today, she and her, we're going to discuss the trials and tribulation of freelance writing. Welcome, Rana. Thank you for joining me today, and so happy to chat with you and learn from your wisdom. So, just a bit to tell the audience who are watching or listening is a bit about Rana. Rana is the founder and managing director of Wishbox Media. She is a provider of digital media content, research services, and media training. She is also a freelance journalist covering political, social, and refugee issues in the Middle East, most often for the New York Times and more recently for Bloomberg News. She is the author of Voices of Jordan, a nonfiction book about modern day life in Jordan. She holds an MA from George Washington University Graduate School of Political Management. Very impressive resume, Rana. And also for anyone who's watching, just sharing with you some of Rana's work here. You can see some of her bylines, very impressive work in the New York Times, one of the top newspapers in the world. So you can see her covering about the issue of young Syrian brides and about gunmen in Jordan. Also, if we want to talk as well during this chat about her move towards entrepreneurship and establishing Wishbox Media, which is her media services company, and she's going to tell us more about it. And we're going to discuss briefly about how she published her book, Voices of Jordan, and how you can go from a journalist or freelance journalist to actually publishing a book. So, Rana, welcome again, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Natasha, for having me. It's a real honor to be with you and the colleagues here on this course and cohort.
Yes, of course. I'm sure everyone is gonna learn from your experience. So we're gonna do this like as a debate style, and I'm just gonna start by asking you a bit about, the title of this presentation is The Trials and Tribulation. And the reason I picked this because I know it's a trial. And I wanna know, like, you grew up in Jordan, you were educated in the West, but having a byline in the New York Times is a huge achievement. So I want to hear from you, how did that happen? What was the journey that led you to have that byline? And what tips do you give for aspiring journalist or freelance writer in order to actually have this huge accomplishment, this byline in the New York Times?
First of all, thank you, Natasha. And I also, of course, follow your work and bylines as well, more recently in Arab news. So congratulations on the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, I would say that at my time, I was of the generation or witnessing the switch over from print to digitization. I mean, my bachelor's was in journalism, but print was still king at the time. We're talking about 99, 2000, 2001, early 2000s. Even when I graduated and was looking for work here in Jordan, which took me at least 1 year and a lot of course, disappointments and rejections, I finally got a job as a reporter. I just found an advert and I applied. And it was the beginning of the Iraq War as well. So there were a lot of foreign reporters basically based in Jordan, waiting for the border in Iraq to open so they can go in and cover the war there. So they set base here and they were covering sort of their action from Jordan. And I sometimes, while I was reporting for the local newspaper here, I would meet them in the field and they would say, oh, can you tell us what's going on? You know, sometimes they would ask, would you work with us on, you know, fixing or translating, things like that. So that's really how it started. And I would have coffee with them and we would just like chat and network. So I was really introduced also, of course, in the US to the media there, but really practically also literally in the field.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I kept in touch. But what happened between 2000, let's say 5 and 2009, and to a certain extent, Natasha, until today, newspapers are still struggling, or media outlets are still struggling with finding the right business model, or a business model that really works. Some have succeeded. Um, I would say few have succeeded so far. The others are still struggling to find the business model or the balance to really monetize, whether it's a non-profit, or you know, there are investors or things like Unheard or Tortoise. Really impressive thing, Bellingcat, really impressive kind of independent media sprouting here and there. But I think overall, the industry is really struggling. And this impacts, obviously, my personal journey in journalism. And one of the reasons I moved from journalism itself and freelancing, which I still occasionally do, but to something which I felt needed to be more sustainable as I also get older as well. I would say the journey to writing for freelancing for the New York Times, you know, is a combination of networking, of being in the right place at the right time, of building sort of good contacts, of meaning, you know, officials to talk to, you know, just understanding the context that you're working in really helped as well. I actually started off with what was then the International Herald Tribune, which was published in Paris. I mean, it was affiliated with the New York Times, but it was in another way. It was a separate sort of supplement on the Middle East. When the Arab Spring began, the supplement closed down. And I tried to sort of navigate with the same contacts who were covering the Middle East as well. And my editor was also really kind to sort of refer me to other sort of reporters working there at the New York Times. And, you know, it just kind of organically grew. I, you know, helped in terms of fixing, in terms of translating, and then it grew into me basically covering a story by myself and writing it and working with a photographer.
Have you ever been?
It's not a clear path, Natasha. I would say it's a lot of this and that, and a combination of really hard work and sticking with your passion as well, because at the time the switch over, it was really a depressing time in journalism. It was really easy to sort of quit and move into something else. So sticking to the passion as well, being patient with the networking. So, you know, learning also the craft, the way that, for example, the New York Times covers the region, the way they write, the way, you know, you fact check, etc. It was also something that I worked really hard on.
So how does it work as a freelancer based in the region? Do you pitch to them or do they come to you? And if you pitch to them, has any of your pitches been rejected, and how did you deal with that?
I think my pitches were not rejected because more or less I was in sort of the system, so I knew what kind of news they were looking for or feature stories. Sometimes we adjusted the pitch,
Okay.
or the editor did. Um, One time only, uh, maybe it was 2014 or 15, the editor said, "Can you hold off on this story?"
Okay.
Because there was a lot of coverage about this topic.
Okay.
And actually, I saved that sort of the contacts and the story, and I ended up using it for my book. Um,
Ah. Which story?
so
Which story?
yeah,
Curious.
but I got a lot of, I like any freelance. I mean, I got rejections later on from the National Geographic um, and others, but I think it helps a lot to have contacts because they want people they trust. They want preferably people they worked with, etc.
So, while you were writing for the New York Times, you were pitching for the New York Times, were you also trying to publish in other places, or you were not allowed to? I'm just curious how that.
No, it's not. I'm not allowed to. I was really like busy with them, so especially during the Arab Spring, I didn't think of pitching to others. What in the back of my mind, what was going on is three things. One is later on, I started thinking about the book. And also later on, I started thinking about it's time to move on to, like, for example, investigations. I'm really now into investigations. And also, I mean, I still have a dream of mine from um, my first year at university, which is to publish a feature story in Harper's or the New Yorker. So I hope I can achieve this dream before I pass away.
You will just visualize it and it will happen.
Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean that I didn't really have time to pitch elsewhere. And also, Natasha, I would say the number of stories coming out of Jordan is limited.
Mm.
So it's hard to, especially these days, it's hard to find a lot of stories to feature stories to write about.
Hmm. So, as part of the cohort that I'm teaching is how you can sustain yourself financially doing what you love, which is in our case is writing, whether it's journalism writing or whether it's you do copywriting, ghostwriting, and the, the idea for me is, do you think it's sustainable to be a freelance writer? I know now you're based in the Middle East, but now things changed with remote work and Zoom and all of that. You can pitch to any organization, you can write from anywhere, so the location is no longer an issue. So, do you think it's sustainable to do it financially and actually make a living writing and producing content?
I think it's difficult, but not impossible.
Okay.
And I think also you have to diversify
Okay.
um, even the freelance work. For example, if you're going to dedicate your all your time for writing, I think, for example, today you need to start thinking about Patreon or Substack, and not just opening Substack and saying, here I am, or Medium, the medium.com.
Hmm.
But to really be serious about it and to have a following, because it can be a separate source of income. I'm not saying it's sufficient, but it can be, something on the side that you can do. It's also an opportunity to market your work that you're freelancing. I would also say it's really important if you're going to be a full-time writer to also, um, sorry to say, but market yourself really well on social media and seek opportunities on social media as well. Monetize that as well if you can. And then also in terms of feature writing, I would say depending on the rate, you need to also be really working hard, perhaps for more than one outlet to make ends meet. The best scenario is to have a regular sort of relationship with an outlet where you can guarantee a monthly income, if possible. It's a really tough market. It's great if you have savings as well, because as you know, Natasha, there are months where they're really good and a month or two can pass that are really bad. So you have to take this into consideration when you're financially managing yourself as a freelance writer. Also, I would look into other kinds of work as well, like researching, taking on consultancy, especially if you need the money. You have to sort of sacrifice a bit of writing time for this if you need the money, unfortunately, to do also full-time writing. So it depends on your situation. I think a lot of people wish they can, you know, make a career of writing, but I'm not sure how many indeed succeed. I mean, there are of course people who do and they make money, and that's great. But I think a lot of people struggle.
Okay, since we're being honest and transparent here, so you, in addition to you freelancing for big publications, New York Times, you also mentioned recently Bloomberg News, which is, like top tier publications. You also moved towards entrepreneurship and you started your own media services business where, to my understanding, you do like content creation for organizations. If you can tell me a bit about that, and why did you transition towards that? Is it because you wanted to sustain yourself financially, or is it because you felt that the freelance part of your life was not fulfilling enough and you needed to do more, to go more into the entrepreneurship realm?
I would say it's a combination of finding something that is in the future more financially sustainable, hopefully. But also, I thought, in 10 years, I don't know how, journalism is going to be. I don't know if if I'm going to still be here, if there are stories to cover, stories to write. I also felt that the amount of money I was making was like everything was getting more expensive, um, especially these days with inflation. But I mean, even back then, but our rates were the same as 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was just not adding up for me. And I knew I wanted to, like, it's my passion. Like, if it was up to me, Natasha, I would be a reporter my whole life. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. It's what, drives me. But I cannot guarantee that it's sustainable. And I thought of myself, it's okay, it's time to make a decision. Either I change careers or I do something that's sustainable, something that I can see month to month, something that is productive. And as I said, something financially viable. I'm really glad that I'm still able to produce media content. We do it perhaps differently, obviously, we're using a lot now new media methods like photo stories, infographics, etc., and GIFs. And I'm learning a lot. I still feel like I'm in the media, but there's nothing truly like working on a story and writing a story for a publication. There's just nothing like it. And I completely love that. But it's such an uncertain market that I couldn't just risk it anymore. The amount of money I was making wasn't something that I knew I could continue doing.
Mm. So, would you ever consider working full time for a newspaper, for a publication, like being on staff instead of being a freelance writer,
I
waiting to
would,
be accepted or, pitching and all of that?
sure, sure. I would love to again, but I don't have it in me to travel to places like Afghanistan and Syria.
Mm.
Um, I mean, I'm passionate, for example, about events in Syria and covering, Syrian refugees. I follow events there carefully, but uh, I don't see myself as like a war reporter, to be honest with you,
Okay.
especially at my age right now. And this is also one of the reasons that I thought even if I apply to a full-time job at a newspaper, I know I'm going to be based either in Lebanon or in Iraq or elsewhere.
I see. So it would not be like covering like cultural news or the business desk or something like that, or that's not what you like to cover.
It's not what I like to cover, and it's perhaps there are many others that cover it better than me. Like, this is not really my niche.
Okay.
And yeah, so they would see me more as covering like the Middle East, and political and social issues.
So, in terms of your business, it's based in Amman and you provide services for local companies mostly, right? Or local organizations. Would you,
Well,
yeah.
also, Natasha, we've worked with the UNDP, for example. Um, CFI, it's a French a development agency as well. I mean, the program, their funding is in Jordan, but it's an international organization. We work with a local NGO at the moment that advocates having nurseries in workplaces for women. So this is like one of the local NGOs we work for as well in terms of marketing, but it's a diverse kind of client base.
So, how scalable is the business and how flexible in terms of, let's say, you move to a different country? Can you take your business with you, the same business, or are you tied to your location?
No, it's flexible. And in fact, I also have a great team. And I did travel for a while, and I was easily able to manage the team as well on the ground. And we had a training as well. We had online debates. This is we are planning to expand, and we are hoping to really expand regionally, but also internationally, hopefully in the future. And I hope to be able to register Wishbox Media outside of Jordan, as well as maintaining the base here as well.
So there's a myth that journalists are not good at math and moving from, it's a myth, I'm not gonna say it, but it's moving from being a writer to being a business owner can be a bit daunting. Maybe it comes naturally to you, but I know for many journalists to go from kind of the creative side to the more business side is is a journey of learning. How did you manage to maneuver this and maneuver all, the legal aspects of registering an organization or managing the books or paying taxes or hiring and firing and all of that for someone whose most of your career was based on your creative output?
I would advise anyone who wants to open a company to have a bookkeeper.
Hmm.
I've learned the hard way. Uh,
Didn't we
it's
all?
it's a bit of my it's a nightmare for me, really. So I'm glad to say that I found a great bookkeeper recently. So he's been helping me a lot with that, sort of having a system in place, and taking over. I've learned from a grant I got for my book,
Hmm.
how to do budgeting. So I've transferred this to Wishbox as well. Um, and so I learn as I go, and you know, all the projects that we have taken on, whether it's with Konrad Adenauer Foundation or with the French Media Development Agency, CFI, we've had to formulate budgets and how, you know, where everything is going. um, Thankfully both of them, um, you know, they want things to move, so they're not nitty-gritty picky about it. But I mean, because I had the experience, I'm able to know what they're looking for, etc. Now, what I find daunting, Natasha, is when I want to apply, or I want to do a proposal for a grant, or yeah, for a grant for Wishbox Media. It's really daunting, and I cannot outsource that, because sort of the idea I have in mind for the grant, whether it's new media training, etc., or media content creation, I'm the only one I feel who can really explain the idea.
Hmm.
And also I know what is required in terms of the budget and the breakdown of the budget. um, so I have to end up doing it, and unfortunately this takes a lot of your creative out of your creative time and sort of other time, but it's necessary if you want the company to grow.
So, hearing about your clients, I noticed most of them are like nonprofits or in the development world.
Mm.
Are you gonna try to go to businesses? Commercial is one example. If you've been approached by a big business in the region or internationally, and they want you to create a content strategy for them, whether in terms of podcasts, whether in terms of blog posts, social media strategy, are you willing to scale to that size, or you're more comfortable with the nonprofit world?
No, we are very open to that,
Yeah.
and we are helping, you know, in terms of social media and having, you know, the calendar, the strategy as well, for a Konrad Adenauer project that we're working on. Um, but, you know, we're also working in Jordan, where the development agencies and the donors, and the NGOs, I mean, the whole country is basically run that way.
Mm.
Um, the private sector, I have found, are very difficult to work with. They don't have the same level of commitment. There's still a lot. It's a big struggle. I talk to creative people working with projects with the private sector. They say they're very unreliable sometimes, or they have a contract and they break it. I mean, I've heard, you know, mixed stories about the private sector, but we're very open. And actually, it would be great for Wishbox to work with a big private company, because that would mean also a long-term, hopefully, partnership as well in the private sector. It's really where I think people make the money as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe are you thinking more regionally or locally or internationally? I mean, where is the focus of your business in order to scale it. I mean, I would understand maybe the private sector not being that reliable in some parts of the world, but in other words, in other parts of more like capitalist words, the sort of the private sector actually runs the, the country. Uh,
Exactly.
so I'm just curious to see if you're thinking beyond the location based
Oh yeah, all
yeah.
the time, Natasha. I'm thinking more regionally in terms of new media training, especially, but
Yeah.
offering services as well. You know, we offer high quality media content,
Okay.
whether, as I said, it's infographics about social or political or cultural or scientific issues, even. We do interactive maps. You know, this is not only, only for Jordan. This is applicable to anywhere really in the world. We're able to do that, and we have the staff, we have the professionalism, we have the tools to really implement any sort of idea or creative media content idea for any private or public sector as well. I mean, we've been approached by big uh, consulting firms as well, who apply for huge proposals to do the marketing for that, or the train or the media training. And we're still waiting to hear from some of them, but it's a really also difficult for these consulting firms to get the deal. But we've been approached, and the way I asked them, how did you find us? And they're like, online. We found you online. We like your work. Can we meet with you? And they say, can you do 1, 2, 3? And these are massive, huge projects that they take. But we haven't really hit the jackpot yet in terms of these big deals yet. But we hope soon we will. And one of the things on my mind especially is, now 3 years on, we're ready to really expand.
So how would people find about, you said online, but how are you, like, it's a big word, right? And there's people from all over the world, but what is your marketing plan to make people know about your media services firm in a country called Jordan, and you wanna, reach places everywhere? How
Yeah.
how are you marketing your business?
So we have a social media team.
Okay.
So we work a lot on promotion on social media, promoting our content. And the other way is we continually update our online brochure with samples of our work as well. We just updated it like a week ago as well, with 2021 projects as well. So I would say mostly online, and we learned very quickly in the second year how important social media is in terms of marketing our work and promoting our work. And we've got clients because UNDP, for example, and also the local NGO, through social media, they found us.
Have you ever invested in paid marketing or
Yeah, yes.
paid ads? What did you use? Like Facebook, or what did you use?
Facebook and Instagram, sometimes Twitter. Uh, and we learn every time we do a social media campaign. We do a data analysis, and we learn a lot, what to do, what not to do next time. Quality versus quality versus quantity. Uh, and we're also sometimes pressured by the donors for numbers. So we really have to promote our media content that we produce for them. They care about numbers. So we try to explain to them that yes, numbers are important, but so is quality and engagement
Mm.
as well. So this is still a struggle with some of the sort of traditional agencies as well.
Did any of the ads that you paid for led to any new clients? Was there like a conversion where they went from audience to a paid customer?
Not yet, but we've got inquiries.
Okay, okay.
And
So
also, Natasha, we do media trainings. And when we put out an advert, we're looking for participants. We get a lot from social media, people wanting to apply for the media training.
what do you train people on?
New media skills. For example, the first day would be really about the different ways of the craft of writing. So profiles, feature stories, news stories, what are the difference as well. We do mobile journalism, how to do an audio story, field interviews, interviewing skills, promoting the story online, etc. So we have an upcoming training in June with 12 participants, half of them Syrians, half of them Jordanians, young journalists. And we put them in groups at the end, and they actually produce a story together. These stories, we publish them with on online media outlets.
So do they pay the participants to get training, or are the donors paying for them?
No, the donor is paying for them.
Okay. So the other, like, what's happening now is people are selling, like the one that we're in right now is cohorts, online cohorts, where you do not depend on a donor to fund you, but rather the participant themselves who are willing to invest in themselves.
Absolutely.
They can
Absolutely.
do that through, finding you. So, have you ever considered basically cutting the gatekeeper and going solo, where you actually do?
We hope to get to that point.
What's preventing you?
Well, right now I would say 2021, we were really busy at full capacity creating media content. We had two big grants on that. And secondly, we got the opportunity to do this training. We got funded for it, so we need to do it. And we want to do it. But this is all hopefully in preparation for training and for hopefully people paying for the training. But I have to say, Natasha, again, the local context we're working in, it's very difficult to find people to pay for trainings because so many donors in Jordan are willing to fund trainings. So people are used to now finding training opportunities, even online. I don't know if you're familiar with Idrak.
Yeah,
It's an online
for free.
it's for free.
Yeah, but they're in Arabic. They're doing all the training in Arabic, or are you expanding to English?
Right now, our training is in Arabic because this is what was asked of us.
Okay.
It's very easy for us to do also a training in English if the opportunity arises.
Hmm.
And we have basically the tools and the manuals as well to do that.
So before we conclude, I want to ask you about what kind of tips would you give for one, a freelance writer or a freelance journalist who's actually doing it and at the same time want to experiment with entrepreneurship or solopreneurship. That's kind of like where
Yeah.
what is having with solopreneurship on the side, whether it is selling products like courses or ebooks or books, like in your case. And do you think there is no way around that you just have to be, if you want to be a freelance writer, you also have to be a solopreneur at the same time? So what kind of tips would you give?
Time management is really important. Financial management as well. Being able to outsource what needs to be outsourced, so you don't spend your time bogged down in details and things that take away from productivity and creativity. and the core work you're doing. So if you can outsource some things, you really need to do that as well. Mhm.
What do you outsource? What do you recommend outsourcing?
Bookkeeping, for example, um, sometimes administration,
Mm,
um, sometimes you need people to help you with training. So maybe some, social media, for example. I'm very involved in Wishbox social media, but I cannot do it alone. So
mm,
we have a team,
yeah,
but I'm also part of this team, right?
yeah.
But there's a burden lifted because there's someone that can do all the posting,
Mm,
do all the analysis. I review sort of the caption, the hashtag, the
the strategy. Yeah,
yeah, exactly, the calendar.
yeah,
But there's someone doing the calendar or starting the calendar, and
yeah.
then I look at it, I edit it, etc. So whatever you can do to take away from that time, because time is really, precious in that way for productivity and creativity. Whatever you can, just stay managing.
Mm,
Remember, don't get bogged down in the details as much as you can.
yeah, yeah. Well,
So
and
financially, my number one advice is have a bookkeeper, even if they're freelance.
okay.
And secondly, administration, whatever you can outsource, try to. Natasha, I love working with Upwork.
Okay.
Just make sure you keep it keep all the communication and sort of the contracts in Upwork. Don't go outside. Don't find them on Upwork and go outside because you can be scammed.
Mm.
But I found a lot of help, and you'll find within your budget uh, people to help you move things forward.
Yeah. What kind of tools do you recommend for time management or like content calendars?
Yeah, so we use Google Drive a lot to
Yeah.
share documents, and also Google. We use Excel as well, workbook. WhatsApp, we have groups on WhatsApp. So the social media team has WhatsApp, a group on WhatsApp. So, I'm ready to post now. Is this okay?
Mm.
The calendar we have we have it on Excel, but with links sometimes because, you can't put too much info in Excel. So these Google Drive is our main sort of tool that we use as a team.
Mm. And the content
What
calendar.
about you?
I use a lot. I use like I of course I use Google Drive. I use Notion. I use Evernote, Slack
Yeah,
for community,
yeah,
WhatsApp, mostly WhatsApp for international
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
participants.
WhatsApp is very popular here.
Yeah, I use Otter to capture any
Yeah, yeah,
thoughts or ideas on the go. Yeah, so there's there's a lot of I love tools.
yeah.
But this has been great, Rena. Any final thoughts, tips, advice to anyone who's watching or listening or taking the course?
Yeah, I mean, I just want to conclude and say, freelancing has many positive and like anything, it has positives and negatives, pros and cons. The pros for me is your own time. And if you're able to manage your time, it's great. I get to do a lot. I get to attend, I get to travel, because I'm not bogged down in sort of a 9 to 5 routine. And I think for many, this has also changed during Corona. And so I had already started this before Corona, but I'm sure many know what I'm talking about now after
Yeah.
Corona as well. It gives you also the opportunity to meet different people, different outlets. It gives you the opportunity to take risks, to experiment. So in that sense, it's really great. And you get to do more than one thing.
Yeah.
So as I said, like maybe you're doing Substack, and then you're also you have an online brochure that you keep updating. You have the website of the company, for example. You can then also freelance for a newspaper. So it's fun. I get to also work now on investigations, which I absolutely am very passionate about now. So the nice thing about freelancing as well is that you can learn from the different things that you are doing and apply them to other work you're doing. So for example, I may learn something from my company about photography that I didn't know before, like the photo stories I learned from a photographer. So I applied it in that sense. So it's fun, it's great, it's risky, it's it's many things. Of course, it can cause anxiety in terms of sustainability, in terms of what about tomorrow, what about the industry itself, the business model itself. It's unstable.
Yeah.
And that's the risk you take.
Yeah. But it's fun.
Absolutely.
I,
Absolutely.
we just, I think, get addicted to the hustle. I think all of us who are in this
Yeah.
field, we love
And
the hustle.
I can't ever imagine, working on a desk,
Yeah.
to be honest with you, from something like 9 to 6.
Yeah.
I have to go for walks. I get ideas that way.
Yeah.
I'm moving all the time. I'm meeting people. It's so important for me to go out and meet people as well, for the company, for journalism. So
Yeah. So yeah. Well, Rana, this has been great. Thank you for joining us for this hour on a Friday evening. And we'll stay in touch. If anyone wants to reach out to you, they can find you on ranasweis.com, also on Twitter, and your book is Voices of Jordan, your company is Wishbox Media. Thank you for joining us and wish you the best of luck.
thank you, Natasha. Likewise. Thank you for having me.